Hi, Brittany. So thank you for joining me today. So we're here today at this meeting of groups of groups, or a group meeting to discuss the future of BC Yukon Drug War Survivors Group. Why are you attending, and what do you make of the meeting so far, and what are your kind of aspirations for the meeting? Yeah.
Well, I think this group, which we still have to name officially, but unofficially it's been like the group of groups, was formed about a year ago because we felt like the association, BC Yukon Association of Drug War Survivors, wasn't being accountable to their membership. We tried to host an AGM, and VANDU had, I think, about 30 or 40 members at VANDU on a Zoom call for that, and it didn't work out. I think they had the same numbers at Solid and other places across the province. So despite our technology issues in the pandemic, we were actually able to have as many drug users in a room as possible virtually, and that the actual association didn't uphold their end of the bargain, and so the membership of VANDU and other organizations decided to leave the group after many weeks when a rescheduled AGM was supposed to happen, and it was a closed membership. Only a few people were allowed to sign in. Myself was one of them, and I am not a current or former drug user. I'm an ally, and so I'm not a voting member. So we tried to get the information and weren't able to get folks in on that. So that's sort of the beginning of this whole group.
So it's an attempt to re-energize a group that's kind of fallen.
Yeah, and I think it's basically, for me as someone that works at the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, it's a bit selfish to think that we want to make sure that other groups are able to have as much autonomy and understanding of what a drug user group could or should look like, so that when we go into rooms where other people who are with lived experience or peers or whichever term are being used, they're educated on the issues that are happening and the demands of our general movement and are moving in the same direction as most people, so that we can move things forward like decriminalization or safe supply or regulation in the direction we want to go. So I feel like we need to build this coalition, get people on the same page so we can get to that place.
So for decrim and safe supply, what's the superpower? What's the value of a drug user group, or a group that's led by drug users? What is the value of that?
Well, I think the thing that I've been reflecting on is that VANDU is coming up on its 25th anniversary, and the amount of programs and policies and shifts and thoughts around drugs in BC and in Canada that have started at drug user organizations like VANDU or other organizations that are actually impactful in reducing the harms is huge. So one-for-one needle exchanges, those were annexed by VANDU members. We have the first injection facility, overdose prevention sites. VANDU went to VCH years before they came up with the naloxone program at BC CDC, saying that they received naloxone from Edmonton, who received naloxone from Chicago, and saying this is a life-saving thing, we need to invest in this. And that movement didn't move anywhere because people undervalue the thoughts of people who use drugs, but realistically almost every life-saving measure that has been created in the last 20 years was originally thought of by a drug user, and it's only when it's co-opted by the system and it's a moneymaker, etc., that it really expands. And so I want that to stop, and I want us to focus on people who use drugs as the center of things. And when people are on a committee with some government officials and there's one drug user in the room, their autonomy is very limited. If they're one person in that room and they're going back to their drug user group or union and they have to report back to those people and they have specific demands and wants for that committee, they are more empowered to make decisions, say things, and actually leave the committee if it's not going in a direction that they want. And so it really helped push drug policy beyond the status quo. And most people who are in government are people who don't typically use drugs on a daily basis or are not open about it. and don't
Or have less contact.
and don't face the same barriers or stigmas that our memberships do. And so when they're thinking of things like, for example, the decrim policy, when it's at 2.5 grams, you know, that seems palatable to the general Canadian public, which it is, and they don't know anything about decrim. But like the difference of 2.5 for someone who uses drugs and like 4.5 or 6.5 is huge, because it could be the difference between, you know, having a version of decrim which really actually isn't useful for them because it doesn't even get them through a full day of drug use, or having one that allows them to have a couple days where they could now have volunteer jobs or real jobs or see their kids more often or bring them to school, all those sorts of things. So it's like, instead of like choosing to put people in jail or not jail, it's like allowing them to have a life outside of jail. And I don't think politicians see that, where people who use drugs see that and they can push for that change.
So do you think if we fast forward 5 years, drug user groups and drug user-based advocacy will have pushed the province much further? Is that your aspiration and belief, if we were to play that kind of game of you know, looking into the future?
I mean, I hope so. I think we're at a place where, like, in the last 3 years, there's been a huge growth in like groups that identify as drug user groups, whether they're falling into what we agree as a drug user group, or if they're just people who are working, who also use drugs and are part of an organization. If we can get those organizations in all the different regions to start talking together, coming to some sort of consensus on what our short-term and long-term goals are, and like what our yays or nays, or where we like stand the line, and as if we are a union, we will be able to have a lot more say. Because if VANDU leaves a committee right now, we've left many. I don't think it has the same impact. If the
VANDU is the Vancouver area.
Yeah, but if we have 4 or 5 other groups on, say, a committee for decrim or regulation, and all of the drug user groups lead together, that says something.
Sure.
It's now impactful at a level that us leaving as an individual organization wouldn't have anymore.
Okay, well, that's lots of food for thought, and thank you, Brittany.
welcome.
Yeah.